All right, CNT125 Voice over IP Lab. We just got done configuring on our router the telephony config and putting in our ePhones and our ePhone DNs. So at this point, again, if you haven't done, the copy run start here thing, do that. So you have your config, you have that saved. We now can take our two phones and actually plug them into, with a patch cable, into phone ports on your switch. So on the back of the phone, patch cable, make sure it's plugged into the switch port on the back of the phone. Make sure it's plugged into the switch port on the back of the phone. That patch cable now goes into the switch, into one of the phone ports, ports 1 to 10. Do that for both your phones. Once you've done that, we can now take the power brick, and again, we might need to be sharing phones and power bricks with our lab table mates, but I can plug my power brick into the phone, and the reason we're using these is our switches in the lab rooms are not power over Ethernet, so we're using the power bricks to power the phones. That is not ideal in a real network environment, but that's what we have to use here. So I'm going to power those. I just plugged mine in. I'm going to keep an eye on them while they boot, because I'm going to look at the process of it configuring the VLAN, getting the IP, getting its config, and then it's going to kind of reboot and apply all that. I'm going to keep an eye on that, and I'm also going to keep an eye on my console here, my router console. I should see some messages pop in. I'm also going to take a patch cable and go from my PC, the PC I'm using right here, and I'm going to plug that into the back of one of my phones. On the back of the phone, if you look, there's an additional port back there, and it'll be labeled PC. So I'm going to take the patch cable from my PC. I'll scroll up here to my map real quick. Go way up here. Well, I got to go up there a little further than I thought. I'm going to look at the map up here. I'm going to take the patch cable from my PC, plug it right into the back of the phone, into the PC port on the phone. This is how your real business phones are set up. That allows you to use just one switch port to accommodate both the phone and PC in an office. So I have that done, and again, I'm kind of waiting for my phones to boot. I'm keeping an eye on them. Once they boot, I should hopefully see a message on my phone indicating that it's gotten its config, and then I should also hopefully see a note over here that it has registered. So that's kind of what I'm keeping an eye on. There we go. Looks like this phone's just about there. Excellent. So my first phone has actually registered, and I see on the phone screen there's actually a number there, 7001. So that's my ePhone 1. And I'll see a note here on my screen that has registered as well. Excellent. I'm doing everything right. Yay! So I'm looking at my other phone now, keeping an eye on it, seeing if it's doing the same thing, and it looks like it's working on it. You can do it, little phone. You can do it, little phone. Sometimes these do take a little while, so you got to be patient. These are real basic nodes. They have very little processing in them. They're getting all their config from our network. So you can do it, phone. You can do it, phone. There we go. Looks like it's just about done too. Excellent. I see 7002 on that phone, and I also see that that has registered as well. Yay! Okay. What I'm going to do now is, now that that has done, I'm going to let's look at the IP address that the phone got. So on my phone, there should be a button on there labeled Settings. I'm going to click that, and the phones are all a little different, so kind of use your IT skills here. We're going to browse through that and look for an option that says something like Network Configuration. And we're going to scroll through and we're going to look for where we see something about its IP address. And this one I have 172.16.128.11. And this makes complete sense. This is coming from my voice VLAN. So there's the IP address for the phone. I'm going to do cancel, cancel, cancel kind of thing, or exit, wherever it's asking me to do. And I'm now going to, on this PC that I have plugged into the phone, I'm going to open up the command prompt. I'm going to do IP config, and I'm going to do release. I'm going to release any IP that this happens to have, and then I'm going to do renew. And this should now be requesting one through the network to my router. It should be requesting an IP, and let's see what it gets. So Ethernet 3, 172.16.64.11. Yes, this is coming from my PC VLAN, my PC subnet. So the configuration on the switch with those two VLANs stacked on each other, with my sub interfaces and with my trunking and my VLAN ports and everything else, I now have the PC getting a IP address from the PC VLAN, PC subnet. At the same time my phone is getting plugged into the same switch port, it's getting an IP from the voice VLAN, voice subnet. You know, right now I'm doing like a little fist in the air. Woo! Okay. What I'm going to do now is I'll pick up my phones and do a little testing. So I'm going to dial the other phone, 7002. Yay! I'm going to pick it up, answer the call, look at the screen, see what information is being displayed on there. The other thing I'm going to do is I'll hang it up and I'll dial the full 10 digits. So I will dial 717-780-7002. Oops, get back here. Try that again. 717-780-7002. Oops. Helps if I hang up the other phone. I didn't have the first phone hung up. There we go. So I'll dial for a full 10 digit. Hey, look at that. It's working. Yay. And I'll observe that. Again, make sure. There we go. Make sure it's hanging up and closed. Okay. Now that I have that, let's take a look at my router interface. So I'm going to go back to my PuTTY console here. And let's do show ePhone. Now that these are registered, I should see my ePhones now, the two actual physical phones, the MAC addresses of them. I should see ePhone 1 registered, and there it tells you the phone number and button and everything. And ePhone 2 registered, MAC address, button and everything. Okay. So these are both in an idle state. There's nothing going on. Well, I'm now going to reissue a phone call between them. So 7002. I'm going to let that operate. I'm going to let that phone call operate. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to do show ePhone again. Now that I have an active phone call, I get more information underneath. It's almost twice the amount of size that's here. It's showing that it's connected. This is showing it's connected. If I look a little more, it says active call. It tells me the IP addresses that are connected, which is kind of cool. And it tells me the codec that's being used, G711. Yes. Okay, so it's telling me it's using the just straight pulse code modulation, analog to digital conversion codec. That's all that's being used. So there actually shows me a little bit about statistics of this phone call. And you'll notice, hey, make note of that codec. Make note of this codec that you're seeing, the G711 codec. That's the straight analog to digital conversion codec. All right, I'm going to hang up my phone call, make sure it is indeed hung up. So now I have a little bit of information about it, but I do want to know more. I do want to see more and know more. So we are going to look at the IP phone protocols. So to do this, I'm now going to need to move or actually connect the PC up with Wireshark. So in the next podcast, I'll talk you through what we're going to do our Wireshark for this network.